Welcome back, Chapter 3. By the time I returned home, the house was dark even though it was only 8:30. I didn't like seeing firsthand how small and sad my parents' lives had become, how they probably marked off the minutes until they could turn out the lights and be done with another day. Of course, if I was being honest, my own life wasn't much better. My mom had left the porch light on for me, and it cast long shadows across the lawn. Living in Chicago, I'd forgotten how quiet Ludlow could be. No cars passing, no music playing, no voices raised in joy or anger. A rustling from the overgrown hydrangea bushes at the side of the house stopped me in my tracks, and I waited for a neighborhood cat or curious raccoon to make an appearance, but nothing moved. I stayed very still, the silence loaded with anticipation like the moment before thunder booms or the door slams. A silence that lets you know by its very emptiness that you weren't alone. Is someone there? I asked. I maneuvered my keys between my knuckles like I always did in Chicago parking garages. Greer? A low voice sing-song. It seemed to come from all the dark corners of the yard at once, and the tiny hairs on the back of my neck woke up. Come out and play, Greer Dunning. Recognition and relief flooded through her. Recognition and relief flowed through me, and I lowered my keys on a burst of laughter. You assholes, I called into the darkness. Get out of here. Two shapes emerged from behind the hydrangea bushes, hands waved in frantic greeting. You should have seen your face, Cassie said, making a mock terrified expression as she enveloped me in a hug. I couldn't remember the last time someone had hugged me this way, and I clung onto her, breathing in the still familiar scent of her coconut shampoo. That was Cassie. Once she found something she liked, she never saw a reason to keep looking for anything better. Don't be an idiot, Ryan said, elbowing Cassie out of the way for his own hug. She looked way more scared than that. He pulled back and gave me his trademark lopsided grin. Even now, as a full-grown adult, he still looked 18 with his dirty blonde hair and bright blue eyes, a smatter of freckles across the bridge of his nose. I feared momentarily that you might piss your pants. I thought all these years in the big city would have made you tougher. Oh, shut up, I said. You both are full of crap. This right here was one of the reasons these two have remained my closest friend, even though we've been separated by both time and distance. They didn't tiptoe around me after what happened. They were sympathetic, of course, and kind, but they still treated me the way they always had, teasing, giving me shit, reminding me there was a world outside my own head. Trusting that I could take it, and even when at times it felt like maybe I couldn't, I appreciated their faith in me. How did you know I was back? My mom was out mowing the other day and got to chatting with your mom, Ryan said. Cassie punched me in the upper arm a little harder than necessary. Why didn't we hear it from you? I was going to call once I got settled in, which was true. But being back in Ludlow, seeing my parents, sleeping in my old bed, reconnecting with people I left behind, seemed like something it was wiser to ease myself into rather than jumping in all at once. I should have known Cassie wouldn't have the patience for that approach. Settling in, she said. That sounds like more than a quick trip. Come on, Ryan said. You can tell us all about it, but let's get comfortable first. I nodded, and he led the way through my yard and into his mother's. When we were kids, before his parents split up, Ryan's dad built a gazebo in the back corner of their lot, screened from his house by bushes and from ours by a wooden fence. It's where Ryan's dad spent most of his time in the years before the divorce, going so far as to put in a propane fire pit so it was usable space even when the temperature fell. Once he was gone, the three of us had claimed it as our own. Sleepover, dance parties, drunken evenings, planning our respective futures. It was beginning to rot on one side now. but still had a roof, dusty wicker furniture, and privacy, which was all we really needed. And it was the place where we shared our biggest emotions, starting back when Ryan's dad left. I'd come home from school assuming Ryan's absence that day was due to illness, and my mom had sat me down and told me Ryan's dad was gone. Gone where? I asked, munching on an oatmeal cookie. My 7-year-old brain imagined a trip to Kansas City or Wichita, wondering if he'd bring back something cool. Last time he'd gone out of town, he returned with a badminton set we played with all summer. No, my mother had said, mouth tightening. He's gone for good. He's not coming back. Later, after dinner, Cassie and I had knocked on Ryan's front door and his mom had directed us to the backyard. We found Ryan in the gazebo, curled up on the love seat. He'd taken one look at us and burst into tears, hiding his face in a throw pillow, sobs racking his tiny shoulders. And Cassie and I had sat beside him, wrapped our arms around him and hung on. We said nothing. Not because we intuitively known that's what he wanted, but because we were 7 and had no idea what words might help. After that, the gazebo had become our code, a message that we needed to share big feelings, and we didn't want reassurance or words of encouragement. We just wanted to be held and allowed to weep, or to jump around like crazy and scream with happiness. Cassie had used it the first time she asked the girl out. Her cheeks red with excitement, hands twirling through the air as she told us the details. I used it the night after Eliza's murder, sobbing on the floor with Cassie and Ryan tangled around me. Over the years, this place has soaked up so much pain and so much joy. Stepping inside it always made me feel lighter somehow. It splintered wood, the unlikely foundation of a friendship that surpassed the usual limits. The 3 of us went to movies and traded confidence and laughed at inside jokes. We knew one another's pet peeves and bucket lists, but we held one another's hurt too, like it was our own. Not a burden, but a privilege, the kind that over time knits you together to form your own type of family. Man, Cassie said, sinking down onto the faded love seat, I'd kill for a beer now. She jabbed Ryan with her elbow. Why didn't you tell me to pick some up on my way over? Because I can't think of everything. Forget the beer, I said, digging around in my bag. I have something better. I pulled out a joint I've been saving for the right moment and held it aloof. Courtesy of Luke Brown, 8th grade stoner. Ryan laughed. You stole that from one of your kids? I think stole is a strong word. I prefer to think of it as relieving a minor of something that would have caused him a world of hurt if I reported it. Basically, a win-win situation for both Luke and me. Ryan snorted. Whatever you say. You catch kids with drugs a lot? Cassie asked, eyebrows raised. I shrugged. Often enough. People always seem surprised by the stupid, no thought to potential consequential decisions that teenagers made. But I never was. I lit the joint and sucked in a lungful of smoke, held it as long as I could before breathing out. Almost immediately, I felt better, lighter, the tight fist in my chest easing. Remind me to thank Luke when I get back to Chicago, I said, passing the joint to Ryan. Kid knows his weed. I stuck my foot out and poked Cassie's knee. Sorry I never text you back. How are things going with you and the waitress? Bartender, Cassie corrected, and that ended last month. Jesus, Dunning, Ryan said, at least try to keep up. Cut her some slack, Cassie said, taking her own puff off the joint. You know how hard it is to keep track of my relationships. She rolled her eyes. What with all the eligible lesbians here in Verdigris County? True, Ryan said. I think at this point, you've dated all three of them twice. Cassie laughed. I would punch you, but unfortunately, you speak the truth. Growing up, Cassie's sexuality had never really been a secret between the three of us, and by our sophomore year of high school, everyone knew. Although many a boy had tried to talk her out of it. Took one look at her curves and waves and auburn hair and felt sure his magical would be the one to change her tune. I always thought she might move away once we graduated, not because people treated her badly, but because I figured somewhere bigger might give her more opportunity to find someone to spend her life with. But Cassie had chosen to stay. Her family had lived in Ludlow for generations, same as mine. Ludlow was small and it was dying, but it was home. It was fried chicken at a diner on Sundays after church, cicadas in the town park, and parades down Main Street. The cinnamon gum Mrs. Scudder, the librarian, always chewed so you can smell her sneaking up on you in time to hide any books she deemed inappropriate. The green sky right before the tornado siren sounded, and the fresh, clean tang of the air once the danger had passed. It was joy and shame and grief and longing. Ludlow was woven into every part of me, and we could never be untangled. What about you? I asked Ryan. Divorced finally yet? I was stalling, but I did genuinely want to catch up on their lives. I was shitty about responding to their texts, emails most of the time. Live with a low-grade guilt about letting them carry the heavy load of our friendship into adulthood. After Eliza died, I pulled away, needing both distance and solitude. But Cassie and Ryan hadn't allowed a full retreat. Showing up once a year in Chicago without fail, texting and calling, and never letting my frequent silence deter them. They held on tight and sure, my strong, steady anchor in a life that sometimes threatened to swamp me. Ryan signed, holding his hand out for the joint. I'm going to need that before I talk about that. But yes, the divorce is basically done. I'm just waiting on the final papers. I caught Cassie's eye for a second and then looked away. We both know Bethany and Ryan were never going to work. Cassie has sent me rapid-fire emails during their entire Russian engagement, spitballing ways we might engineer a breakup. Her prenumptimate suggestions being kidnapping Ryan and holding him for a ransom we doubted Bethany would ever pay. Ryan himself seemed to be the only one who couldn't see how wrong Bethany was for him. At the wedding, an overly stuffy affair held in a generic Kansas City hotel ballroom, Ryan's mother had leaned into me, her eyes bright with too much wine, and whispered, "She's going to break his heart sooner rather than later." In the end, it took a bit longer than Joan Sawtell had predicted, but her mother's instinct hadn't been wrong. And now Ryan was back in Ludlow trying to pick up the pieces. Well, good fucking riddance, Cassie said. She sucked. She really did, I told Ryan, thinking of Bethany's slightly pinched smile whenever she looked at him, like she was already cataloging all the ways he was bound to disappoint. You were way too good for her. Yeah, a 30-year-old underemployed dude living with his mom. I'm a real catch. Stop, I said, reaching over and giving his elbow a shake. If it makes you feel any better, Cassie and I aren't exactly setting the world on fire either. Cassie huffed out smoke. Speak for yourself, loser. I make $13 an hour and I have a line on a semi-attractive chick who works at a dollar store in Nesho. We laughed, but only because we knew Cassie was content. She might bitch and moan about the lack of available potential mates or her going nowhere job at the diner, but she was one of those people who was satisfied with the life she created, even if other people might think it lacked imagination. Cassie had never needed big dreams, huge accomplishments. She didn't light up at other people's approval or wilt under their disappointment. Her opinion of herself and her life was the only one that mattered. I had always envied her ease inside her own skin. Through the trees, I watched Joanne Sawtell's kitchen light go off, and I imagined her walking into the living room, settling on a floral armchair in the corner with a romance novel and a glass of wine. As a kid, I spent so much time in Ryan's house that I knew its rhythms and its tics as well as my own. In the distance, the 9 o'clock train whistle blew, long and mournful. We used to dare one another to lie across the tracks, only moving when the train was close enough that the rails jumped under our bodies, or Chet Majors came out of his house and screamed at us to stop acting like fools. You can still set your clock by that train, I said. Yep, Ludlow isn't big on surprises, Cassie said, then paused. Except for you coming home. Ryan and I had a bet on how long it would be before you came back. She pointed at Ryan. You owe me $20, by the way. Nice try, he said. It was $10, and you'll get it when I win the lottery. He turned to me. So, what's the story? Why you decided to come home after all this time? Not that we aren't thrilled, Cassie clarified, but it was unexpected. For a second, I thought about telling them the truth, but I didn't want to see their worried expressions, watch them exchange looks I wasn't meant to catch, like in the weeks following Eliza's death, when I cornered anyone who would listen to tell me I had a feeling we still didn't have the full story, despite Roy Matthews' arrest. That the who wasn't enough. We needed to figure out why Roy had killed Eliza and Travis. My dad had gone so far as to ban me from the store for a while, tired of me inserting myself into every conversation to ask if anyone shared my suspicion. I've been borderline crazed. I could recognize that now. I just wanted to find one single person who would ask more questions, who would push the way I needed them to, but I never had. And then came the shoebox hidden away inside my closet. After that, I never spoke in my suspicions aloud again, and I wasn't going to start now. We got to pay attention to that shoebox. I shrugged, and I was worried about my parents with the new murders. My dad left me a message, drunk and crying. I figured I'd come home for a bit, and work has been slogged lately. I could use a break. Yeah, Ryan said. The whole town's been pretty shook up about Dylan and Abby. Did you know them? I asked. Dylan Short and Abby Johnson, excuse me, both 18, both shot to death in the same parking lot where Eliza and Travis died 14 years ago this month. Only to say hello to, Ryan said. You know how it is around here. No one's a total stranger. His brow furrowed. Did you know them? I shook my head. Not really. I remember Addie's mom coming into the store sometimes, but I don't remember Addie. She would have barely been in elementary school when I left Ludlow, and Dylan's name doesn't ring a bell at all. Yeah, his family moved here a few years ago, Ryan said. Dad got a job with the railroad, I think. Same as my dad back in the day. From what I've heard, Dylan wasn't thrilled about the move. You know we'll always be here for you, right? Cassie asked, leaning forward to snag my hand in hers. Whatever you need, even if it's only for us to listen. It doesn't matter why you're back. We're just glad you are. Especially because it saves us a trip to Chicago. That's not exactly in the budget right now, Ryan said, shooting up his leg to block Cassie from smacking him. His face sobered, and he put his free hand on top of our joined ones and squeezed. They were giving me an opening, and I almost came clean. Told them that what I was really doing back in Ludlow now, about the nagging feeling I carried for 14 years, like a claw in my gut, telling me this wouldn't be over until every dark secret had been dragged out into the daylight. I knew they'd listen, like they always had, humor me in the kindest possible way, even if they didn't truly believe it. But even with my best and oldest friends, there were some things I couldn't risk talking about. So I smiled and kept my mouth shut. Old habits dying hard. Okay, that's the end of chapter 3. Not much to say, but like I mentioned, we need to keep that shoebox in the back of our head, because I'm trying to figure out what could possibly be in that shoebox that's giving her some type of clues. Unless it's clippings from her sister's death that she have in there, and she see that. But she had said something. Yeah, let's just keep the shoebox in mind about that. So that's it for this chapter. I shall see you in the next chapter. Bye for now.